Welcome to the deep dive. Today we are really getting into a source that tackles something the author calls the silent killer of, well, modern life,
Yeah.
complexity. The book is called Don't Let Complexity Ruin You, and it basically argues that real achievement comes from what you take away, not what you pile on. So our mission today is to pull out the practical, actionable stuff on using subtraction everywhere in your life. We're going deep on simplifying your character, goals, how you manage things, even relationships, trying to get you the shortcut to understanding this philosophy.
Yeah, and what's really striking right from the get-go is this idea that complexity is, well, mostly self-inflicted. We choose the complicated path thinking it looks smart or like we're trying harder, but the source says that's just backwards. Simplicity in everything, physics, relationships, that's the real peak achievement. So we need to unpack the methods it suggests, which are sometimes a bit counterintuitive, starting with the hardest part, ourselves.
Okay, yeah, let's definitely unpack that inner work. Because the advice on character, it's genuinely surprising. It just throws out the usual project strength always or be the smartest in the room advice.
It absolutely does. It flips the script on, the usual self-help stuff, which is often about more optimization. The source implies that even optimization itself can become, well, another layer of complexity.
I can see that. It talks about self-mockery, calls it life's humor-esque as a way to quickly disarm your own ego and, external pressures. But here's the bit that really jumped out at me. The idea that you can actually get closer to success by actively showing weakness.
Right. And that's a really potent form of subtraction. When you show some vulnerability, you sort of subtract the competitive friction. It changes the whole dynamic, doesn't it? From potential confrontation to maybe collaboration. Makes you seem more approachable. And strategically, that means people might share things, offer help, open up more easily, which helps you learn and build connections way faster than keeping up that perfect, rigid front.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. It simplifies the relationship right away by making you less of a threat. And that connects to the other paradoxical advice, right? To be a muddled, smart person or maybe be a little foolish
Yeah.
to get more blessings. How does playing dumb work?
Well, it's like the ultimate mental subtraction. It's not about actually being unintelligent, of course. It's about choosing your battles, knowing when to use your intellect, and crucially, when to just let the small stuff slide. The so-called muddled smart person avoids that constant calculation and reaction to every little thing. They save their energy.
No, okay.
And they end up getting more blessings, as the source puts it, because they're just easier to be around and they focus their energy where it counts.
So adopting that kind of character, what about the mind itself? How do we actually apply subtraction to our, day-to-day thinking?
The source treats the mind almost like a computer that's constantly overloaded. It needs regular maintenance. And it stresses that simplifying has to be active. It's not just hoping things get simpler. You have to actively learn to use a brake sometimes.
Hit the brakes.
Yeah, so life doesn't just run away from you. And that means scheduling time for mental maintenance, actively clearing out the garbage, as it calls it, to regulate your whole system, body, and mind.
But the really deep point here, I think, is the link between clarity and, well, desire. We're always chasing happiness, but the source says we struggle because we just want to own too much.
Exactly. That's the core of it. Our excessive desires create this huge complexity. We just keep stacking them up until basic contentment gets buried. And the solution offered is pretty blunt. You have to consciously lower your expectations.
Ouch.
Yeah, and really accept that life isn't perfect. Stop demanding perfection everywhere, relationships, job, even your commute. Accept the flaws, the gaps, and suddenly life feels much less draining.
So the whole personal philosophy is pretty unified then. It's pushing you to use subtraction to live life, which boils down to knowing who you are and what you're supposed to be doing. Do things according to character and act according to role. Define your role, simplify your actions to match.
Okay, so if we take the inner simplicity and apply it outwards to action, the source has a really clear take on planning and goals. The main principle is, the simpler the model, the easier the success. Makes sense, right? Complexity in a plan just adds more ways for things to go wrong, more ways to get sidetracked. So that demands really relentless focus. You need simple, clear plans, and you have to put your time where it matters most, not just on what's easy or screaming the loudest.
Yeah.
And the source gives a great tip for avoiding that feeling of being overwhelmed. When you're looking at some huge life goal, just focus on the nearest small goal. Don't get lost in endless what-ifs or grand conceptions about life years from now. Just take the next step.
That definitely simplifies getting started. We do get stuck mapping the 10-year plan and forget the first simple step we need to take today. Okay, let's shift this into management and professional life. The source says the highest level of management is going from complex to simple. What does that actually look like for a leader? It also emphasizes innovation over experience. Why would experience be a drawback?
Well, experience can sometimes be like a library of complexity, can't it? If a process has 12 steps and you learned it that way 20 years ago, experience tells you to stick to those 12 steps.
Right, the tried and true method.
Exactly. But innovation, by its nature, looks for the simplest, most direct way. It might cut those 12 steps down to 3. The best leaders, according to this book, are masters of subtraction, always simplifying procedures, reports, systems. And the simplicity focus extends hugely to the people side, too. The source talks a lot about simplifying interpersonal dynamics to avoid what it calls endless internal consumption.
Oh, that sounds familiar. The energy drain from office politics.
Precisely. That emotional and mental drain from too much politicking, gossip, navigating complicated social stuff that isn't necessary.
Yeah, that internal consumption, the constant
Yeah.
maneuvering. It's maybe the biggest complexity trap in any workplace. So what's the advice for the leader to cut through that?
The leader has to set the example. Apply that simple ancient wisdom. If you want loyalty or influence, you need to give first. Lead by giving. It sets up a clear, simple, positive expectation for how people interact. Trust. Exchange. It cuts down immediately on all that complex transactional relationship building.
That proactive generosity really does simplify the dynamic. Okay, looking at communication principles now, there seems to be a parallel focus on emotional generosity, like tolerance.
Absolutely. Tolerance and forgiveness are key to simple communication. You just eliminate so much mental friction if you refuse to hold on to every little grievance. And the source says a vital skill is perspective taking. Really try and feel things from the other person's viewpoint.
Stepping into their shoes.
Yeah. When you genuinely do that, maybe 90% of potential conflicts just simplify because you understand the why behind what they're doing. But, and this is important, there's a balance. You need tolerance, yes, but you also have to learn to say no sometimes, to set boundaries. Otherwise, you become that nice guy who gets walked over. Simplicity needs edges.
Right, boundaries are a form of simplifying commitment.
Exactly. Though the source is realistic, it admits that sometimes good-willed lies are needed to keep social harmony. A little complexity that paradoxically simplifies the bigger picture in a relationship.
Okay, let's try to define success simply then, based on all this. The source says you need a clear goal, a morning star, to guide you. But your daily mindset has to be completely detached from the immediate outcome. Seek effort. Don't ask about harvest. Just do the work.
I like how that just cuts through the anxiety about results. It manages urgency so aggressively. The source warns directly. Too hasty leads only to accelerated failure. Impatience just adds noise and pressure.
Yeah, and it suggests that if you do hit a wall failure, a setback, the simplest thing is to just ignore the past emotional weight. Set your sights entirely on the future.
That is a huge act of emotional subtraction, isn't it? Seeing unemployment or a project failing or a relationship ending not as some final verdict on you, but as a brand new start. It instantly simplifies the emotional baggage. You drop the regret, the endless analysis, and just look forward.
Okay, and this theme of acceptance, it links right into the advice on general well-being.
It does. The source flat out tells you, you're not Superman. You can't demand everything goes your way. Simplicity means accepting life as this constant flow of gains and losses, things you just can't fully control.
And once you accept you're not in total control, the wellness advice gets pretty straightforward. Find contentment in what you have, actively steal leisure even when you're swamped, consciously give your soul a place to rest, a harbor. These aren't luxuries, they're simple necessities for sanity.
Exactly. Simplicity means recognizing and respecting your need for downtime. And finally, this principle gets applied even to marriage, maybe the most complex relationship for many. It stresses just cherishing the person right there in front of you. And crucially, avoiding comparison like the plague. It states very clearly, love will decay in comparison.
Yeah, comparison is like inviting all this external unnecessary complexity into what should be a simple bond between two people. Ultimately, the source boils happiness down to its absolute core. Living is the greatest happiness. If that's your baseline, everything else is just noise you can choose to subtract. Simple, but profound.
So wrapping this up, what does this all mean for you listening? We've covered some really non-standard ideas today. Embracing a bit of foolishness strategically, showing weakness to actually gain strength, deliberately lowering your expectations, defining top-tier leadership as just, moving from complex to simple.
I think the main takeaway is that simplicity in this view isn't about being lazy or passive at all. It's actually a really active, sometimes difficult, deliberate process. It's about ruthless prioritizing, managing your inner state, your emotions, your focus. It means constantly letting go of that excess desire that just clutters up every part of life with noise and friction.
Right. And here's a final thought for you to chew on, something provocative from the source's advice on reducing conflict. If you want to get rid of enemies, the simplest way is actually to turn enemies into friends. Think about that. What complexity, the stress, the strategy, the lost sleep, what does that approach actually solve for you in your job, your family, your community? Maybe go explore just how much lighter things could feel if you focused on that kind of subtraction.